Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby.
The national tournament is underway, and the power of the gods are on display in another awesome and epic episode of The God of High School. This, my friends, is the turning point of the series. The point where The God of High School ceases to be just a standard martial arts tournament anime series and evolves into something a little more grander, a little more extreme, a little more out there. This was just an insane episode to say the least, and just when you think that the action is going to stop, take a breather and just relax, no, the series manages to go into freaking hyperdrive. That's what this entire episode is all about, as it does not skip a beat, not only giving us a tremendous amount of action, development for the side characters, and even the introduction of some brand new villains. This was a great episode of The God of High School, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to do it justice. All I can say is that it was a delicious action treat that you should want to take a bite out of. There's a lot of ground to cover in this episode, so let's go ahead and dive right in, and let's prepare for me to mispronounce a lot of Korean names. Ready, steady, go. So basically, there's two main things that are going on in this episode of The God of High School. There's the national tournament, and then we go back to the events of Q, who in the last episode was assassinated by Drake, a member of the Nox organization. Before we get to everything that's going on there, let's actually talk about the national tournament, which in the last episode, they let us know that it was going to be a team competition. These three-man teams are going to come together, and basically, it's the best of three. Essentially, it's going to be one-on-one matches, and if you win, you get 2 out of 3, you're able to move on to the next part of the competition. And of course, Mori, Mera, and Daewy are going to be first up as they go up against this team of fighters, which are pretty interesting to say the least, but probably the least flashy out of any that we've actually seen thus far, but that doesn't make them any less interesting. Actually, the very first fight might be one of the most surprising ones, where you have Mori, who's actually going up against this guy by the name of Gidong? I think that's how you pronounce it. Look, the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to be able to pronounce half of these names, so he fights the dude with orange hair. And he just got some brand new training from that member of the Six, and basically before the fight begins, he activates these pressure points on his body, which is supposed to make him really powerful. The problem is Mori screws this up and basically ends up freezing himself, allowing this dude to just wail on him, and big shock, Mori loses his very first fight of the season, which is pretty surprising to say the least. I mean, I guess technically you could say he lost against Mera when she snapped his neck solid snake style back in the first and second episodes of the series, but still, this is like his first official loss here, and basically it sort of ups the tension for the next major fights which are going to take place, as it's really up to Daewy and Mera to actually take this victory. And Daewy is up next, and he's fighting against this giant dude with green hair, who goes by the name of Pum Kwang. At least, again, I think that's how you pronounce it. But they actually decide to go into this guy's backstory as well as the other female member of his team, Zhang, and they both have sort of like this intertwined story with one another. The character of Pum, he looks like he comes across as kind of like a very like dumb, kind of loud, boorish kind of character, and he is, but he's a character that has a heart of gold. He's that type of character that never gives up, and his entire backstory is basically about him trying to go through high school yet again, despite the fact that he's way past the age of an actual high schooler, and he gets a lot of flack from a lot of the younger students for this, but it never manages to actually dampen his spirit, and he's able to take this energy in helping out the character of Zhang, who is another swordsman just like Mera, which of course you know that means they're going to be battling against one another. But what's really interesting here is that she was a character who was the exact opposite, constantly working as hard as she could and ready to give up when she realizes that she's probably not going to be able to achieve her dreams. It's when she meets Pum that she realizes that this is a guy who never gives up, no matter what. As long as you continue to move forward, you will have your opportunity in the sun. And essentially, it's a great message. I've seen it done 1,000 other times in other anime series, but it works really well here, and the fact that they were able to insert this and sandwich it in between these two ridiculous action scenes that are actually going on is something to be praised for. And then, of course, we have the actual battle with Daewy, which is awesome because this dude can actually summon a giant hammer. And I mean, this thing is like ridiculous, like jokey-sized hammer. It's crazy. It's called Thor's hammer. It's bigger than his entire body, and I'm pretty much convinced at this point that you have to have the powers of the gods to be able to actually witness this. Otherwise, people in the stand should be freaking out when they see this guy who's lifting what is essentially a giant silo on a stick, and he ends up just throwing it directly into Daewy, who, of course, takes it out with one of his big Azure Dragon kicks, which I think looks even way cooler in this episode, and he manages to defeat him, of course, basically meaning that Mori's team is going to have one more win to actually move forward. Now, of course, Poom being the guy that he is, of course, he's not really upset about this. He's going to live to simply fight another day, and that's a great attitude to have. And then we have the final fight, which is going to be Mera going up against Zhang. Now, like I said, these are two characters who both use the style of the sword, and their entire fight is honestly pretty freaking solid, I have to admit. But again, Mera is just way more proficient in her style, and of course she does predictably win, but that's not to say that Zhang doesn't give a good fight. She's still pretty awesome here, and it's great to finally see like a sword battle in the series, of which we've really only seen small snippets of that, especially back during that whole wedding episode, so it's really great to see her go up against someone who's very similar, just with a very different outlook on things. They're very different characters, despite the fact that they're very similar, not only in their overall aesthetic, but just in their overall fighting style. Again, the message is, don't give up, keep moving forward, and you can accomplish great things. At the very end of the episode, we get to see that they're actually moving forward with the next part of the tournament, and they finally bring in that character, Jagle, the guy with the long turquoise hair and the red eyes, and we get to see him fighting against that one guy who's a part of that major corporation who has the nurse-maid, like, bodyguard. I don't know, it's really crazy, but we basically get to see how insane Jagle is and what sort of powers that he actually used. In the previous episode, he had, like, this giant mouth which just sort of, like, appeared underneath the ground. Apparently, he has the ability to summon a massive man-eating shark-like monster, which in this episode just absolutely wrecks this guy. The overall image of watching this thing chomp down on this dude and bite through his abdomen and seeing all this blood just explode all over the ring is just ghastly, to say the least. I can say that the violence in this episode was kicked up to 11 compared to some of the stuff we saw in the previous episodes, but this guy being able to summon like a man-eating shark goes perfect with his personality, because the dude, he is a freaking shark. He is freaking insane, and this was just a great demonstration of his powers, and yet that guy who got chomped on still ain't down yet. He's still gonna continue to fight, which is really crazy and awesome. It's just such a great demonstration of how far these characters are willing to go to actually win this tournament. Not to mention, everybody seems to want to get involved here. Mori wants to jump in and save the day, but Daewy comes in and ends up fighting against him, surprising Jagle quite a bit. Really, this is just an awesome introduction to these characters, and the best thing about it is, that's just the tournament side of things. That's just one small part of this entire episode. There's an entire half which is dedicated to everything that's going on with Q and O battling against the Nox organization. And before we even get to that, I do want to bring up the fact that they go back to what actually happened to Mori's grandfather when that giant sword came out of the freaking sky and attacked him. Basically, it looks like he lost an arm in the process. I mean, the dude was probably really powerful, but how the hell are you going to defend against a giant freaking blade just coming down and just wiping your ass out? Basically, the implication is that he escaped, or maybe he was captured. I'm not really sure. All I know is the dude is awesome if he's able to survive something like that. But I think my favorite part of this episode had to do with all of the scenes in Q's apartment after he'd been attacked by Drake. And my theory in the last episode is they're not going to take this guy out this easily, and they certainly don't. Because this is when Q just kicks things up to a brand new level that we've never seen before, with his ability to summon that weird jester-like clown with the giant scythe, a scythe that he is also able to use as he battles against this guy, cutting off his limbs and making him look like a freaking fool. That is until we get two brand new members of the Nox organization who show up. This one guy who goes by the name of Axelay and a crazy woman who goes by the name of Saturn. And this is when this just insane battle ensues, where they all just start to fight each other with some of the coolest damn choreography that you've ever seen, and they all have amazing powers. Even O shows up and displays that, just like Q, he can sort of summon some sort of like weird, sort of like monstrous godlike power. Basically, it's like a giant dragon, which is like the size of this entire building, and he can remove one of these dragon's teeth and basically transform it into a giant staff made out of fire. Do I sound like I'm on LSD as I describe what this entire show is about? It's insane. Not to mention these two other brand new members of Nox, such as Axelay, who apparently can grow wings and fly around really fast. But then there's Saturn. Saturn is a great character because, of course, she looks like this sort of cutesy-esque character. She has a lollipop and everything, but she ends up bringing out like this giant gun, which is in the shape of a cross, which has appeared in so many other anime series before. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is Nicholas D. Wolfwood from frickin' Trigun, but Wolfwood's gun didn't have teddy bears that exploded out of the cross that would shoot laser beams. Yeah, it's that kind of episode, and this entire battle scene, I simply can't describe how incredibly awesome it is, how fast-paced, action-packed, and explosive it truly is, but it features some of the coolest moments from the entire series, nay, probably the coolest moments from the God of High School thus yet. Where the tournament is slightly more grounded, this battle is on an entirely different plane. It shows that these characters haven't even reached like the peak of where they could possibly be in terms of the power, the abilities that they're actually using, and this fight scene is just incredible, featuring such fast fighting choreography. Q in particular I thought was awesome, the way that he would utilize not only his scythe, spinning it around and dodging all of these attacks, but also utilizing his gesture cards, which he can use to trap people, and even all these other characters have distinctive abilities. Like Saturn not only has like the giant gun, she can trap people with all of these weird freaking ethereal hands which pop up from nowhere. It is just nuts, and I really do love it. And both Saturn and Axelay actually have to make an escape when Drake decides to stay behind, because despite having his arms cut off, his unique ability is connected to some sort of giant caterpillar-like monster, which uses its threads to actually bring his limbs back to his body. So essentially, you can cut this guy up, but he's going to keep bringing himself back together, and he's not going to give up. In fact, he ends up going through a last-ditch effort by making this massive explosion at the very end of the episode, where his entire body just sort of blows up, destroying everything. And Q and O manage to make it out here, but they know that Nox is serious at this point, and I'm not even sure what their true motive is. All I know is it's awesome. They want to summon one of their gods. They brought that up in the previous episode, but the manner in which they're doing this is insane. I mean, this episode made it clear that this is not just going to be a simple tournament-style show. There's a lot more to the lore and things that are going on in this world, and it's only going to get crazier from here. So what's the rundown on this episode of The God of High School? Just this was such a great episode. I cannot express how much I really loved watching this one. It's the type of episode that I immediately want to watch again as soon as I'm done with it, if only because it moves at such a quick pace and features some amazing action sequences, which never seem to drop. The quality of the show speaks for itself in terms of the action, but I didn't expect it to get this insane. I really thought that things were going to stay slightly more grounded, and that the whole visual of them using the power of the gods was just going to be basically there just like as a background and didn't really do too much. But this is the episode that showed that things are going to get really crazy and go into the realm of the supernatural and extreme. And if these battles are cool, just like the side characters, just imagine what they're going to end up doing with Mori, Mera, and Daewy, because they're the main characters of the series, and you know that they are going to go all out with their battles in terms of what they're going to do. There's this brand new mysterious element that has been slowly creeping up in the entire series, and it finally came to fruition in this episode with the Nox group, and I can't wait to see more of what they're going to be capable of, more of their members, what their powers are going to be. They're incredibly creative while also being familiar to action anime fans at the same time, but it's done with such gusto that you just can't help but find yourself get sucked right into it. This was awesome. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite episode of the series thus far, and it's got me so pumped to see what's going to be next for this season. And what's really cool is that even with all that going on, the tournament is still just as exciting, but the pacing continues to be just lightning quick. Like, there were so many fight scenes in this episode, it's mind-boggling. There are a lot of other series that if they did this, they would take one of these fights and make them a whole episode or 2 episodes and really stretch them out. But the fact that they were able to fit that much content into a single episode while developing the characters in the tournament, giving us multiple fights, and even giving us that great scene with Q and O battling against Nox, that is something to be accomplished. I think for some folks, it might be a little too fast-paced. They might even want it to slow down just a tad. But man, this was just a breakneck awesome episode of the series, and in terms of production value, is just blowing it out of the water with its distinctive character design, its heart racing action, the amazing soundtrack which just accompanies every single action scene, and just the over-the-top characters. Like, I didn't even mention just the fact that Saturn has this like weird little quirk where when she's done eating her lollipop, she suddenly just starts cursing like a freaking sailor, just out of nowhere, can't control herself as she's attacking with her teddy bear cross gun. Just saying that out loud, it makes you, and that's not even like her main godlike power. That's just like a weird, crazy weapon that she actually uses. Just, whew, the action on display in this series is second to none in some ways, and there's a reason why it's one of the most popular anime this season, and this episode alone makes me realize it's going to go down as an action anime classic. There's no doubt about it. And it also was clear, too, that Q was holding back in his battle against Mori. I mean, there's no way that he wasn't with some of the stuff that he actually pulled off in this episode. They did things that made me realize the main characters might not even be able to take them quite yet. Just, wow, what a display of incredible anime action. I loved this episode. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. I want to hear from you guys. If you did watch this episode of The God of High School, make sure to sound off in the comment section below and tell me what you thought about it. If you had any favorite action scenes or character moments from this episode, some theories as to what's going to be happening later on in the season, let's just gush and talk about this awesome episode, whether you liked it or didn't, in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. If you are subscribed to the channel, maybe think about giving this video a thumbs up. It helps them out a lot. And make sure to hit the bell notification icon. It's going to let you know when all my videos are released. I also want to thank all of my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome, making great donations. Remember, if you make a small donation to the channel, I'll review an anime series of your choice, as well as adding your name to this list of super awesome people. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.